Welcome to Christmas with Impact Hub. It's a very special time of year, and it's been a very special year. Here at Impact Hub, we always try to connect, enable, and inspire our members. And as we moved into this space early this year together with EFK and Scandia, we had so much expectation and wishes for this year. And due to circumstances that we all know about, none of that happened, or very little of that happened. We tried what we could do to make this safe space. You know, we enabled Zoom rooms and COVID-safe conference rooms. We enabled the live streaming services together with Planet Media, actually, who we do this Christmas with Impact Hub with. So we did what we could, but it's been a tough year, you know, for all of us. And I am very much of a in real life person, right? I want to give my people a hug when I see them, you know, and it has obviously never happened this time of year. And I'm not alone, I think, when I say that I am fed up with sitting in front of a Zoom meeting or a team meeting and seeing people on the distance. But what I take with me, though, is that with these Zoom meetings, I also had a chance to look into people's homes, actually, when they were sitting in the kitchen tables, or sometimes bringing their, live streaming into the toilets when they had to go to the toilet during a meeting, you know. Maybe you don't have to do that, but try to turn on your camera, you know, and try to laugh a little bit more, because you are actually inviting all your coworkers to your home, which is a good feeling. It's a good thing, right? So that's something good that came out of these tireless Zoom meetings that I've had. But we are where we are today with the pandemic and the crisis that we have had during this year. But the sun will still come up tomorrow. And what I will take with me from this year is that it is still possible. It is possible to come together as a global community to find solutions to the challenges that we have ahead of us. And this pandemic will ease off. It will end. But we will see other challenges, and we know we have other challenges. They have not taken a pause just because we have a global pandemic. But I'll take with me a lot of inspiration from this year that it is possible to find new solutions to these challenges that we have ahead of us. And for you, I'm going to start a new tradition here at Christmas with the Impact Hub. I'm going to light the candle, because I think we all need a little bit more light in our lives right now to take with us to next year. So this is for you. So that's it. That's the candle lit. Let that burn with you for next year, giving you a little bit of light and hope for next year. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Gabriela and Caitlin, who will be our hosts for the rest of this Christmas with Impact Hub. From me, I just want to wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you.
Well, that was Jesper, our founder and CEO here at Impact Hub. I'm Gabriela.
And I'm Caitlin.
And we're very thrilled to have you join us today and to welcome to our Christmas with Impact Hub Stockholm.
Although it's a bit different this year, isn't it, Gabby?
It kind of is. We usually have a gathered at our space, our Impact Hub. We dance, we eat delicious food. We have like a big potluck where all our thriving and our exciting community brings and shares. And so we'll try our best and keep that same energy, that same inspirational event that we usually have as past years. And so we're looking forward.
Speaking of which, I'll be kicking off the show with my chat with Andreas. We're going to catch up with him since we worked with him over the summer to support his recent entrepreneurial adventure with climate-friendly 3D printing.
Wow, that sounds exciting. And after him, we're going to have Laurie Robbins, who's going to be teaching us how to pick presents for the holidays with a gender equality perspective.
Ah, nice. And after that, things are going to be getting bubbly. I'm going to be talking to Kåre, a champagne enthusiast and also an owner of a champagne club. He's going to give us the tips and tricks on how to enjoy a glass of fizz over the festive period.
Oh, that sounds lovely, especially for those, during these times where some family members might be not getting into the Christmas and the holiday spirit. So for that, we're going to have Xiao, who will teach us how to conflict manage with those kind of relatives.
Is there anyone that you have in mind, Gabby, you're thinking?
I was thinking a little bit about it. I won't say names, but it might be a useful segment, I would say.
I think so too. And after that, I hear a rumour that Cathy might be singing for us a nice festive tune, which should be interesting for the ears of everyone at home.
Looking forward to it. Last but not least, we're going to have Pierre, who's going to speak to us about his experience of remote working and how we can transfer that to maybe now that some of us are not going to be spending the holidays with their families, how he keeps this dynamic spirit with his team members and how we can transfer it to our family gatherings. So that's a little bit an overview about our program, fun and festive. So please stay tuned. It's going to be exciting.
Looking forward to that. But before this, we're going to be joined in our studio by Cathy and Yat, who will be showing us how to upcycle materials around the home.
That's amazing, especially if it's such a short season. We want to waste the least, and maybe we can learn some things together in family as well.
So, without further ado, let's get the show started.
Thanks, Gabby. Thanks, Caitlin. And thank you also to our very own Anne Weisse. I'm now with Yat, who is an architect from the UK, an urban designer. And she's also been she founded Stockholm Green Drinks in 2018. She's been running that ever since. Welcome, Yat.
Thank you.
So during this session, she's going to show us how to upcycle toilet paper rolls and some other things that you can find around your house to make some Christmas decorations at home. Why toilet paper rolls?
Well, because we know that everybody's got lots of toilet paper rolls at home. We use it every day, and judging from how they disappeared like hotcakes from the supermarket earlier this pandemic, is something I know we definitely have a lot of. And it's such a waste to throw them away at the end, and there are so many fun things you can make with them.
My parents actually bought their own house by bulk buying toilet paper when it was 20% off.
Wow. So you can...
We literally had a guest room full of toilet paper.
Well, this is what you could call sustainability in many ways.
So please tell us what you're going to make.
Sure. So since it's Christmas season and I love making things, and I especially like looking in my recycle bag to see what I have a lot of materials of and what can I turn these waste into beautiful products. So I thought these toilet paper rolls can be made into a Christmas wreath. Should I show you the result first? So we can turn it into a Christmas wreath like this.
Wow.
And it's really, really simple to make. Should I show you how?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the paper rolls, all you have to do is flatten it. So I'm quite a freehand person, so you can just cut them into strips like that. And I find a big kitchen scissors like this is really useful because then you can just do it one straight cut. So for this one, you need around 6 or 7 of these strips. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Here, there you go. So this makes one toilet roll makes about 8, and then the next step is you can start putting them together into a star like that. So you can see the shape already. And if you do it without any paint, then some simple wood glue or other glue is quite will stick it really easily. What I found quite helpful is you put some glue at the top and bottom. Oops, sorry, and so you do it on the point and then a little bit on the side for each of those. Oh. There, and then the other ones you do the same, side and side. Oops.
So how did you get into upcycling?
From wanting to make fun presents for my friends, really, or just quirky things. And I do night shopping, so I prefer making things instead. So here you go. So now that we've put a bit of glue, then I find to put it all together, which can be tricky. So you do the top and bottom there, and then you squeeze in the other two. So you can hold on to the middle, and then you just gently tap the top, so then it expands, and then all the glue will stick on. And if it's and here I've used a wood glue, which is super strong for sticking cardboard, so there's no problem with sticking it together. So we can just push it across to dry, and then it will dry in 2 minutes, and then you'll have something quite strong.
Wonderful.
And then to stick all these together, what you could, so these are some I made earlier, so you can also paint toilet rolls if you like. So you can turn them into quite festive colours and cut them into different colour strips as well, and you can stick them. But depending on which paint you have, so these nice glossy acrylic ones look quite festive and long-lasting, but it can be a little bit more tricky sticking them together. So once you've made different stars or flowers, you can either use this on its own, like as a coaster for your glass of wine, or you can have little strings and you can hang them as decorations on your Christmas tree, or you can connect them together to make a wreath similar to this one here.
Wow.
So to stick them together, again, it's quite easy. You can either put a blob of glue here and there, and then they'll stick. But you might want to put them all together to make sure you've got the right number to make a nice ring. Or another way you can do it is similar to how we made the star. You stick these two ends together, and then put a bit of glue on both of these ends, and then you could stick them together like that to join them up as a ring, and then you can have more festive colours. So maybe you can have 2 red ones here, and then the next one you may have 2 white ones. Do I have another star?
Wow, that dried quickly.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that was the one I just made, isn't it? So then you could then connect them into a ring and turn it into something like this. Yeah, and then as you can see, it is pretty strong. And without paint, it doesn't look as colourful, but it is stronger and sticks better together. Okay. And then you could, since it's pretty strong, then you could just hang it on with a string and you'll hang it on a wall. Or even in midsummer, if you have it big enough, you can make a wreath for your
wonderful.
The other thing I have a lot of in my recycle bag are these oat milk cartons, which are great because they're quite thick cardboard and they're silver and reflective on the inside, so they can be quite pretty to make. Okay. And if you also had a long stressful day, I find it quite therapeutic cutting these up, and also just cut them into strips. And then once we can do a quick one to show you how easy it is and how how it can be a stress therapy as well. So you can just cut these into strips, and then you can make a little bundle. They kind of grow in the field, and you can imagine in the autumn when you harvest it, they're quite long and strawy. And then you can cut them into nice long straws, and then you could make a bundle of these and turn them into, I don't know.
Okay, we'll have to see what you have to come up with in the next 10-15 minutes. All right, while you're cutting those up, I'm going to show you how to make saffron buns. but not the usual kind of saffron buns that you know. This one is going to be a little different that you can hang on your Christmas tree. I'll just move this to the side and you can continue cutting that up.
Yeah.
So, what I need for this is water, salt, and flour. Really simple recipe. So, what I use is 1 part salt. For this recipe, I use 2 deciliters of salt. Double that amount of flour, so 2 parts flour. So with 2 deciliters of salt, then we need 4 deciliters of flour. I just use regular flour. 4. And then I'm just going to mix it up with a spoon before I add water, so it's sort of evenly mixed, I guess. We don't want to have a huge lump of salt and a lump of flour, because the salt actually makes the dough quite soft and very, very hard. It's sort of like edible concrete if you really wanted to eat this. And then we have 1 part water. So I just use cold water here. So we use 2 deciliters of salt, so we'll add 2 deciliters of water. I just mix it up again. Nice and simple. Doesn't that look delicious?
That's it really fun to play with, actually.
This is something that you can use with your students, I think.
Yeah.
So Yat has actually been working as a substitute teacher as well during COVID times.
Yeah, it's been really fun working with the junior school woodwork students and helping them make things out of wood, and also some upcycling elements. So they have 1 week left until school term finishes, and some of them are a little bit behind. But I said, look in your recycle bag, what can you use? If you're missing, so if you don't have time to cut all your pieces, maybe you can have an arm for your puppet made of toilet roll. Quite easy to fix onto the actual body as well.
So I've just added a little bit of flour here, it's quite wet. You can just mix it a little bit. It doesn't need too much mixing because it's just water and salt, so you will develop the gluten in this, which will make it hard to roll out. So just add enough flour so it's nice and malleable but doesn't stick too much. And then you just break it up into a couple of pieces. And then I'm just get rid of that. Then you just sort of make it into a nice bowl shape and then roll it out. So just like saffron buns, you need to press quite hard to get it nice and even. And then you twist it inwards like this. Ta-da! You have a saffron bun.
Wow, you make it look so easy, Cathy.
Yeah. So I'll just do one more. Oops, that was not very even. And because these are going to be decorations to hang on the tree, I'm actually going to make holes here with a toothpick. And then we'll be able to string a ribbon through and hang it from the tree when it's done. So I'll just finish making these, and yeah, then we can pop them in the oven.
Super, how long for?
It depends how big you make them. I've made quite small ones, like these ones here, which you could stick onto earrings, for example. I've also made quite large ones. Yeah, I've made one that's actually the same size as my head.
Oh wow!
So depending on how big it is, you just need to adjust the time in the oven.
So you can also join quite a few of these together to make a wreath as well, can't you?
Yeah, I guess you could.
Yeah.
So tell us about Stockholm Green Drinks.
Yeah, so when I started my company Urban Beings in London in 2010, my first debut event as a business was actually the London branch of Stockholm, London Green Drinks, which was a monthly informal social for people interested in environmental issues to grab a drink and talk about green issues and therefore green drinks. And I really enjoyed going there, and we met in a pub, and you don't know who you might talk to, and it's open to anybody with an interest in environmental issues. So it could be from policymakers to startups to scientists to a regular person who just want to recycle a bit more. So it was really useful networking event, and some of the people I met on my very first meeting I'm still in touch with now. So when I moved to Stockholm, I thought, it would be great to go to Stockholm Green Drinks, and I found that there wasn't one. And since the global network, then I thought, let's combine the best of British drinking and Sweden environmental issues. And I thought, let's start up Stockholm Green Drinks. I started that in November 2018, and we'll be meeting on the first Tuesday of every month. And we've been experimenting with different formats, and we thought it worked quite well for our members to focus on one issue each meeting, and then we can discuss it at length. So we've been doing having theme talks on, say, sustainable urban planning and regenerative food processes, how to transfer knowledge within renewable energy leaders, as well as more active stuff like upcycling, things that I took out of my recycling bag, and we made bunk hotels for the winter.
Awesome.
And last November we made reflectors, so again lots of shiny materials like these, and crisp packets. So I worked really hard at drinking lots of milk and eating crisps, so we have lots of material to make the reflectors. And since COVID we've been meeting online, so we've been doing meeting on Zoom and continued conversation online, and we did miss the social element a little bit. So during the summertime, we met up in person again and did more green activities. So it was.
You've been checking out Green Kayak, right?
That's right. So we did green drinks on Green Kayak, which was a little bit of a mouthful, but that was really fun. So Green Kayak started off. It's a very simple idea. Started off in Copenhagen. Some kayakers saw there were lots of rubbish on the water, and they picked them out at the end of each of their kayaking trips. And then they thought, why not do this for more people? So they started Green Kayak. They had sponsorship from Carlsberg.
Nice.
And so if you see the Green Kayak, it does say Carlsberg on it.
Okay.
And the idea is that it's free for people to use. So you get to use the special made Green Kayak, which is big and stable, so it's appropriate even for beginners who don't know how to kayak. And there are two of you with a bin in the middle, so it's socially distanced even during the COVID times. And then you just go to one of the pickup points, which there are 3 in Stockholm, usually by a cafe, and you book it online, and you take the Green Kayak for a couple of hours, come back, and they give you pickers, and you put it in the bin, and then you've done, so you get to kayak for free, pick up rubbish, and you just have to share your photos.
So how much rubbish is there in Stockholm's waterways? How much have you collected?
Yeah, well, depending on which one you go to, only one of them weighed up how much we collected at the end. So that's what made me motivated to go back again. But we were quite lucky. At first glance, it seems like the water's quite clear and clean, which is great. But when you look carefully, and if you think about where are the places the rubbish would get washed up to, then you will surprisingly find a lot. And also, like recently, there's another environmental group that picks up rubbish from the lake, and they fished out loads of random things, loads of car tires, and they made a Christmas coat, a julebok, made of tires.
I saw that picture you posted on Facebook.
Yes, which reminds me, so I was then inspired to make my own julebok out of my own upcycled materials. So,
well, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
With these, I've finished rolling them out, and I've just made a little dent with my finger in all of them, because this is where the raisins will go afterwards.
Are you putting real raisins in?
Yeah, this will have real raisins. So I'm just going to grab out my tray. And then I'll be popping them into the oven.
Nice. And also, if you like to make things from your kitchen larder as well, you can also make your own glue out of, I think, cornstarch and water. So then you can make your own glue to stick the wreath together.
Okay.
And they do keep in the fridge for 3 months.
I remember when I was a kid, I had a school project, but we didn't have any glue at home. It was only nighttime, and I think we were quite poor.
Oh.
So my dad just gave me some mashed up rice.
Yeah.
And I just...
It's quite glutinous, isn't it?
Yeah.
Does it go mouldy? That's the thing I always get worried about.
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
I don't think I kept it that long. I think it got hung up at school, so maybe they would be able to tell you. Well, I'm just going to pop this in the oven now, and then we'll be back in about 15 minutes.
Can't wait.
Can't wait to see what you've managed to make.
And how well it smells.
Thank you, Yat and Cathy. We're looking forward to see how those decorations turn out. But for this segment, please help me give a warm welcome to Kjell Jacobson. He is a coach for conflict management and peace resolution, and he's a member here, one of our best members here at Impact Hub Stockholm. Welcome, Kjell.
Thank you so much for welcoming me to this. I'm very happy to be here with you now, going closer to Christmas. I'm happy to be here, and I've been here for many years, and it's a good surrounding, it's a good atmosphere, and I'm really happy to meet all these people from all over the world and having conversations, just ordinary ones or more professional. So it's a good environment, so I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. We're very happy to have you here as well. And how about your career and your interests in conflict management? I mean, we've had so many conversations about this, but one thing that I was like reminded that I never asked you before is like, how did you start it on this? Like, what happened in your life or experiences that make you build this interest in conflict management and then continue it as a career?
Yeah, good question. I would like to start with one thing that I almost never say anything about. It was when I was 11 years old. I was standing outside the house where I was living together with others. And friends of mine, they were quarreling and having a lot of fights and things. And then I thought, okay, this is not good. Maybe I can do something about this. And that was forgotten by me for many, many years. It was like 10 years or something like that it popped up in my mind again. But it's not a planned start, but still it's something that had an impact on me. Otherwise, it was, first I started to study art and literature, and I'm still interested in that. And then I went to work with social work. And then I worked a lot of years within municipalities and other things in Stockholm region with a lot of different positions like manager, förvaltningschef, which is called in Sweden at the highest level. And I had a lot of experience there, but also worked a lot with people who had problems in their relation to alcohol. And that was probably the thing that made me go into this sphere. Because when I started my company some decades ago, working with alcohol, it was so that in the beginning of the contact with the company, I had a contact with the CEO or maybe sometimes the board, the board director of the board. And they were like in two state of minds, I would say. On the one hand, they were really decisive. They wanted to do something with this colleague of theirs that had problems with alcohol. A second later, or half a minute later, they were hesitating a lot about what to do. Can we do something? Yeah. Have we the right to do something? And what do we actually know? So my first thing to do was to help them to get strengthened in their view, their vision of the situation, and then we can go for. Then after that, we went forward on meeting this guy, and then I made a contract with him or her, and we worked for 1 year together, and that was almost always very successful. But after some years, I started to think upon this and understood that the first thing that I didn't even send them an invoice for, because it was before the handshake about working together with this guy. That was a very important thing, how to help people to get more secure, calm, when they have to communicate a very important question. So then I started to think, okay, I will leave alcohol more and more, and that was what I was doing. And then for many, many years now, I've not been in that area. I'm just working with conflict resolution. And of course, as a following of that, making like working like a guide for managers how to develop their communication skills and how to develop their, let's say, like so that they have their leadership in congruence with their personality,
Yes.
which is a very important question, often forgotten by many courses and things like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it has to do a lot with how to approach someone, right? Like in terms of how you're saying on building up on these leadership skills. Like maybe the manager has good intentions, but he or she doesn't know how to approach or how to address a certain problem or maybe a small conflict within the group.
Yeah.
And I mean, those are skills that one can use both at work, but also at home or with any relations that one has. If you give us now like a sneak peek behind like your everyday work when it comes to working with companies and then working one-on-one with managers, and how does it look like this coaching, and if you can give us maybe a little insight on how did it go from your usual work and now that it's going a lot on virtual, like how do you do some like bridge between that coaching and conversations that you have with them?
Yeah, interesting. Let me start with how I work ordinarily when I meet managers. It's mostly like that either they on their own make contact with me because they've heard something about me and friend of theirs or whatever. So we make contact and then we start a co-working thing for over a period of half a year. And that is my experience, that if it goes on for a shorter time, it is not so easy to really get a good effect of it. But so we start and we work like on a weekly schedule, like meeting every week. And in the beginning, especially if there are some conflicts going on, then we can meet more often. But the main thing is, for me and the guy that I work with, is to set a like base of trust between us. And that can differ a lot. So my beginning of a work can have many different shape when it starts. I always put this thing first of all, make a good contact. So that's important.
And highlight that word of trust, building trust, because that can generate more honest conversations and open up, and for you to be able to, I guess, like go deep into what is the main purpose of this person, like real intentions, and maybe you also get to know a little bit about their personality as well, right?
Yeah, of course, I get a lot. I get a lot of information from people, and it never fails because sometimes people ask me, but how do you really get to the problem, to the core of the problem? And I can say I never ever miss that when I start working with a person, because they are eager to tell me what is problem and what are the opportunities to go further on. So that's also, but it depends, of course, on how we establish the trust from the beginning. And trust is something that people and organizations often use in their communication out to the public. But I will say like that, trust, if you are like a management group or the CEO or manager in your organization, if you want to spread trust in your organization, then you have to trust yourself first.
So you have this experience, this vast experience working with different managers, companies, more in the professional way. But still, we know that the key is like trust and building relations with your team. But now, moving forward to the holiday season, how can one apply this kind of skill set with our families or with our relatives when gathering? Perhaps we're going to have smaller gatherings, smaller get-togethers, dinners, or not at all, or we might just be online. So in a way, we still know that sometimes we have this relatives and these family members that we might not be very keen to speak with, or that we usually don't communicate a lot, or we might disagree, maybe not only like social issues but also political, or I mean it can be anything. So with your experience, how can one apply this like conflict management skills moving to the holidays and with their relatives, family, friends?
Yeah, good question, and very important in these days. Yeah, we can. I have had the opportunity over the years that I've been working with people in high management that many times their family problems get on the table, so we talk about them as well. So that happens quite often. Going back to what can I say about today's situations to people in that situation that you schedule a little on. If you have got some conflict in the family, either the close family or more distant family. Now it depends on how you meet in this Christmas time. But one thing that I've noticed is that it's easy for us to lock other people into our pictures of them. And it can be because of some irritation, some disappointment, or something that is not good in my relation or with another person in the family. And I would like to say, you can do like this. If you have such an image of a person, you can have had it from many years. It is quite common. What you can do is to just at this moment unlock the situation and let this person out of this image of yours. Mm-hmm. It sounds maybe difficult, but you can do it. And when you've done that, you will have a total different communication, more peaceful, better in all the ways, even if it's a person on distant, long way from you, because you can have maybe some phone calls or whatever. So do that. Put them out of your images of them, and then you can have a good conversation or a good relation. Or the relation between the people that are gathering physically will be better, because it's not disturbance from this other thing that disturbed a lot before, maybe. So you can do that. And why I can say this is because when I've been working with managers, I've really used this way of working. It's an approach or an attitude. So you can look upon different earlier situations that are very hard. You can look upon them for a time, like minutes or a little longer, and when you have looked upon them really close without getting any more irritation or whatever, then you can put them aside in a gentle way. I mean, put them aside in your mind.
Your thoughts
in your
about
thoughts
that,
and mind.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when you've done that, it's also the same way. Then you have cleared the communication with this person. And if you fall into this old picture again or thinking of them, then just do it the same way. Look upon it again. This is symbolically, of course. And put them then, when you're calm, put them aside. And then you will have communication working. And I can say this because I've practiced it so many times, and managers on different levels follow it. And they really solve the problems or the, challenges for the day or for the year. But more is that they also have a better life in family after this. Yes. So that's why I can do the loop back to family. Mm-hmm. So thank you for asking me that.
Yes, it's very, thank you for answering. It's perfect, because sometimes we get caught up in the, how you say, like all this, we line up all this, but I don't like this about this person, and line them up before even, or not even considering, but we actually have all these things in common that maybe we can explore together, or... it might be an effort, but sometimes it's worth doing.
Let me add something to that, because it's in one way it's very difficult for many people when they hear this for the first time, but on the other hand it's quite easy, because what I've found all over the years that I've been working is that we've got something which is very human among every human person living on earth. Every human being wants originally to have contact with others, have good relations with others. It doesn't matter if we sit together for a long time in the family or if we just meet people on the street. In some way, but on different levels, everyone wants to have a good relation with others. Then, of course, we can see a lot of conflicts, but the basic thing, the fundamental thing for living is that we want to have good relations. And I know that, and that's the base from which I'm working, and that makes it very clear that it works.
Yes. Amen, Xiao. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
So to wrap up, tell us a little bit about what are your plans for the holidays and what do you look forward to in this next chapter, this next 2021?
First of all, Magdalena, my wife, and I, we are going to buy a Christmas tree today after work. And then we are going to spend Christmas together with one of my sons and his family, and maybe his wife's father living in Copenhagen, depending on the restrictions and so on. He's maybe coming to us. So we will be here in Stockholm, and I like it. I'm happy with that.
Stay local, yes.
Yeah.
And moving forward for the next, for the new years and maybe for 2021, do you have any expectations, plans?
I'm looking forward to go on working with my older clients as well, but also having more lectures, and maybe, more probably, use the new technology. It's not actually new, but a little new, but it's for many people it's new. So I would like to do that, having lectures in that way, and also some cooperating lectures where you can have a smaller group and work together after a shorter lecture. So that I will really enjoy to develop that, and here on the Impact Hub we have good opportunities for that, and that's also great.
We now move to host these kind of lectures, these workshops, and these gatherings online. So now we're doing a live streaming as well. So stay in contact with us. So you can take a look on the offer that we have for that as well. And Kjell, if there's people that would like to know more about your work, how can they contact you?
Good question. Anyone is welcome to contact me, and I would like to. I like that because you can contact me if you've got a company and want some help in company, and you can always also make contact with me if you got some family problem. You're welcome to do that, and let's see when we talk to each other how we can manage to help. How I can manage to help you, maybe. So anyone who wants to call me, welcome, of course. And you can also go into the website. You can use my web email, or you can in some way also make a phone call. It's possible. So anyone is welcome to make contact with me.
Thank you, Kjell, for that. And for those interested, Kjell's email is kjell.jacobson@primecoach.com. If anything, you can go on our website. You can look at Kjell's profile and know more about him and his work. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Hope everyone know a little bit more on how to do some conflict management both at work and both with your families. So next up, we're going back to Caitlin. She's going to get a little bubbly with Champagnebonden. Stay tuned.
Thank you, Xiao, for those wonderful insights. And now we are joined by a very special guest, Champagnebonden, who is here to talk about how to enjoy a glass of bubbly over the festive period. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm liking your outfit as well.
Well, thank you very much.
Very good. So what are your tips?
Right.
Top tips?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think that this specific year, we should all finish by drinking some champagne, especially this year. And it's important to remember that champagne is obviously, this is the sparkling wine from France, right? So what I thought is to, give you some tips and some hints on how you can increase to a maximum the enjoyment of drinking a glass of champagne. Okay?
Good to hear.
So, but even if you would, drink some other sparkling wine like Cava or Prosecco, which I don't suggest you do, but either way, you can choose a Franciacorta from Italy instead. But even if you do that, you will benefit from this advice, perhaps even more than from champagne, because the lower the quality, the more you will benefit from following these small tips on how to enjoy, we're talking about how to enjoy the wine as such.
Yes.
Okay? So, the best thing you can invest in, apart from a bottle of champagne that has been quality approved by Champagnebonden.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, it's wonderful. Yes. It is the best two things you can invest in when it comes to consuming champagne or enjoying champagne is a good glass. Right. So what I have here is a a special glass for, kind of a generic glass for champagne. So I guess that many people have like the flute glass at home and perhaps some other kind of glass, but this tulip-shaped glass is the best to, enhance the tasting experience. So if you don't have one of these special kind of champagne glasses at home, it's better to use, for instance, a white wine glass or a red wine glass even, than to use this normal, flute glass.
I see.
Okay?
Good to know.
So that's the investment number one. Investment number two is a stopper, right? So this will help you seal the bottle, because the whole point now when we want to increase the enjoyment and the taste of the champagne is to kind of the chemical bit of the whole thing is to keep as many carbon dioxide molecules inside the wine until it's time to drink. Okay?
And that's what makes it so tasty and the bubbles going.
Exactly, because the taste of the bubble travels through those carbon dioxide molecules. Anyways, we start by removing a foil. I will open this.
Oh, please do.
Yes. So,
Please do.
And funny thing is that originally, back in the days, the reason why they put the foil here on the champagne bottles was that they weren't always topped up. So in order to seal that some bottles had less liquid than others, they put the foil on it. This is not a problem in our modern time, but this is really the thing. Now we have to remove. First of all, we have to remove the what is called in French the muselet. Okay, so this keeps the cork in place. So are you interested about this? Should I tell you something about?
Yeah,
this is an invention from the mid-19th century by Adolphe Jackson, and he came up with this to have a muselet to keep the cork. Before that, they only had ropes, and because there was a lot of problems back in the days before they came up with this, with the corks flying off. When the bottles were in the producers' cellars. Okay. So anyways, as soon as we start removing this, okay, we need to have one finger on the cork just to make sure that the bottle, if it has been shaken before, it can, fly off. And you don't want to have any, body parts near this, okay? Because if this flies out, it comes out at a speed of more than 50 kilometers per hour. And did you know that in France, do you know what the most common eye damage is?
Oh my gosh, I'm guessing it's something to do with cork flying.
It's a cork flying in the eye. So we need to have one, in this case a thumb. We loosen the muselet, okay? Now, when I'm opening the bottle, the whole point is to make this sound as little as possible. I know it's boring, but we're talking about increasing the enjoyment and the taste, right?
Yes.
So, and I know a lot of people have problem opening the corks. I don't know, do you have problem opening the cork sometimes, or you're?
I can do. I've not learnt this trick of having the thumb on top of the cork, because I find sometimes it just sprays everywhere sometimes.
Exactly.
So it's good
so in order to avoid that and to make the least possible noise, because you want to keep all the taste in the bottle, you have a firm grip around the cork, and what you actually twist is the bottle. Okay? So you start twisting slowly until you feel that the cork is. And shall we see if we make any sound or not? Let's be quiet. This is good TV.
It's really good.
So I can feel the cork is leaving, and now a small fart. But that was approved. Okay.
So it shouldn't be a pop.
It shouldn't be a pop.
Usually, you see this pop on TV, a big celebration of stuff, but actually, to make the best experience, you need it to be nice and quiet.
Yes. Don't forget our focus to increase and maximize the taste.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's much more boring. And popping is fun, but this is the case.
Yes.
So, anyways, this is so the cork is off. It made a little sound, and now. The same principle. I actually wanted to bubble as little as possible. Now, probably you will achieve this by leaning the glass and pour, gently like this. I say probably because science is debating this a bit. So, but I think that's beyond the scope of this small chat. So you see, Right, and I will stop there. A very normal mistake is cliffhanger while I put on the stopper, because the whole idea with the stopper is as soon as you pour, you put on the stopper to keep as much taste as possible in here. Now this bottle, I can safely save this in the fridge, where you should store your champagne that you will drink in some kind of near time, a week without a problem, and the bubbles will still be there. You know, this is what the stopper is for. Now you can see the lovely bubbles. Now what I've done is that I poured about half the glass, slightly less than half the glass. And you know, if I would have poured until the top here, what would happen? Well, all the taste and all the scents would evaporate into the thin air. You want all the taste to remain in the glass. And this is why you have a tulip-shaped glass, and you don't pour more than this.
So less is more in this.
Less is more, definitely less is more. Now, since I'm wearing a mask, I won't be able to smell nor taste, but I'm glad you're here,
I would be
Cathy.
very happy to.
Right.
I would volunteer.
So we can see that you hold in the glass, once again, all these small tips. You're holding the glass not where the wine is, so you're not warming it up,
Yes.
right? And the champagne will taste at its best at about 10 degrees, okay? So if you're, like most people, like myself, store the bottle in the fridge where it's slightly cooler, perhaps you've noticed if you're invited to champagne that when someone opened the bottle directly from the fridge, you try it, okay, it's nice, then after a few minutes, you normally would think, oh, it tastes even nicer. And it's not only because you've had some more champagne, it's also because the liquid has warmed up a bit. So when it reaches about 9-10 degrees, it will taste at its best. Okay?
Fantastic.
So go ahead, you smell.
Well, further ado, absolutely.
Yeah, very
That
nice
smells
there.
lovely.
And you can put your nose into the glass, no problem. And you can try with both nostrils, and you will see if you will find the differences, for instance. So, because you taste most with your nose, and then, you know, go ahead and sip.
Oh, that is delightful. That is really, really something.
Well,
That's lovely. That's,
perfectly done. This is how you
Yeah.
should enjoy the champagne if you want to maximize your experience, your
Absolutely.
tasting experience.
oh, that's absolutely stunning. That's really, really good. And thank you for all those tips. I had no idea about the whole 10 degrees thing as well, and how much to pour and everything.
Yeah.
There is actually so much to enjoying a good glass of champagne.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I'm glad those tips might help you and whoever is watching. And, you know, I think you're the one to wrap it up. But, you know, as a final comment, don't forget this New Year's, especially this year, have some champagne.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah, and entering 2021 with a nice bottle is definitely important. Where can we order?
Right,
a good bottle of champagne,
right,
and including the stopper as well.
Right. Well, the stopper, you will find that in, you know, good selected stores. So I don't have that. But if you want to order some champagne from Champagnebonden, which is only champagne from small producers in Champagne, you can go to the websites champagnebonden.se.
Super.
Yeah.
We certainly will be ordering a few bottles of that, I can imagine.
Excellent.
But thank you so much, Champagnebonden. It's been lovely to meet you and enjoy this fantastic glass of champagne.
Thank you for having me, and as we say in France, santé.
Santé. And do you smell something burning? Maybe we should go and check on Cathy and Yat in the kitchen.
Just grab this out of the oven. Ooh, so there's not too much smoke.
Oh, that's more delicious, Cathy.
Careful, it's really hot. Whew. Ah, they got a little golden brown. But yeah, basically this is what you end up with. A little, very cute little snake.
Oh no, don't say that.
Yeah, so you have the little dents for the raisins to be hot glued in, the little eyes, which you can thread
ribbon through.
And what I did, because some some of the holes sort of expand a little bit or shrink depending on how the dough reacts, is I just held it over the edge of the bench and just sort of drilled through and made sure the hole went all the way through with a drill.
A drill?
Wow. Yeah, so I'll just move that to the side. This makes quite a good drink holder, doesn't it? Cup holder.
It does. Protect your furniture as well.
So I'll put this over here. And here's one that I prepared earlier, so you can see what it looks like here. So you've got the little raisins just hot glued into the hole, and then you have the ribbon, which you need it to be about this long for one this big, and then you just thread it through. I used a toothpick, or you could use like a cake tester to push it through the hole, and then you just paint it.
It's really pretty. So that could also hang with on the Christmas tree.
Exactly.
Together.
Yeah, so I'll just put this here.
Yeah, so all these yummy things, you might have to look up for what might come and eat up all these yummies.
Oh yeah. What have you been working on?
So, so from these little straws, I made a Christmas goat, a Swedish Christmas goat.
I'm so impressed that you managed to make that in just, 15 minutes?
Yeah, lots of practice, Cathy. 5 years of architecture school pays dividend. So what you have to do, so all of this is made from 3 packets of the oat milk cartons. So you just have to cut them into quite thin strips, and then instead of using strings or ribbon, I basically just bundle them up together with one of these, and you can just turn it like that and tie, and you can tuck it into the straw for reinforcement. So it is a bit tricky, and you might have to look on YouTube to see how it's all connected together. It did take a few goes, and then at the end to make it stand, you just get your nice sharp pair of scissors and give it a little trim.
Wow,
there you go.
I'm so impressed.
So yeah. You can use any cartons, so the oat milk carton, or even anything you have lying about at home. So
I'm amazed that you managed to do this in such a short period of time. I can't even figure out how to make a Yule bock out of straw.
You can actually use that drinking straw. I saw a YouTube video of someone making that, but it is pretty tricky.
Well, that's a nice way to get rid of all the plastic straws.
Yeah. So there are definitely, just use your imagination really and be creative and have fun to see.
Wonderful.
What other things? The other things I like to make would be it's that little Santa, it's a tomte made of coffee grounds, because that's also something
coffee grounds.
A lot of.
How do you do that?
Well, I was thinking they have a nice smell and they're quite squishy, and sometimes when you do your laundry and your heart drops to your stomach when you realise one of the pair of socks is missing and you have only one. So I put them aside and I thought that you can stuff the socks with the coffee ground and make it into a tomte. And again, you could also use toilet rolls to make the body or the hat or the feet. Or even some of these if you want to make a reflective one. So lots of things you can make. You just need a bit of imagination, a bit of time on your hand, and have sense of curiosity.
So this is what you've been doing in quarantine.
Yes. Yeah, because I think also the mental health issue is so important now as well. So that's also related to a project I'm working on now about how to make the city accessible to everyone as a way not just to learn about your city and to have a sense, further on that sense of pride and ownership. Because I think the more you know about the city, the more sense of pride you would have for it and you would take care of it. But also the city can be a sense of irritation, like traffic jam and commute. But on the other hand, there's so many things that can make us happy, such as walking a forest in Sweden, or walking by the lake, or even now in the deep of the depth of winter darkness, there are lots of lights, like the Nobel Lights show. So there are lots of things.
There's a beautiful, I actually don't know what kind of bird it is, but there's a beautiful, gigantic bird hanging up just opposite Uppsala Central train station.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Can you take a photo of it and show me?
I will. One of the treasures.
Yeah. So, and you can also use these as reflectors, so you'll see in the dark.
So I have a gift for you.
Oh, wow.
Here is a saffron bun that I prepared earlier. This is for you.
Oh, thank you
You
so
hang it
much.
up in your Christmas tree or your wreath. It's quite heavy, it's like a rock, and so I'm not sure if one of these will be able to hold it up. But yeah,
Super.
thank you for coming on the show.
And in exchange, may I offer you this? And you
Wonderful.
can have this by your Christmas tree.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Don't go anywhere. Coming out next, we have Caitlin and Andreas Horsted, who will be showing us his 3D printed Christmas decoration as a big FU to 2020.
Welcome back to Impact Hub Stockholm Christmas special. I am joined on this sofa with Andreas Horsted, and today we are going to talk about Andreas's work with climate-friendly 3D printing. But before we find out what this involves, I want to talk to you a bit about your background and how you came to create this idea of 3D printing.
Yeah, sure. Well, my background is quite mixed, you can say, because in the beginning I started off with physics, theoretical physics, but then I thought I should do something more positive for the world and the planet, so I changed to human rights and got a master's degree in sustainability. But then what I did was I started to apply that theoretical physics on sustainability and see how can you create a good system. Mm-hmm. So to make a long story short, with the complexity science and simulation that I thought that okay, let's make a new type of marketplace which is more decentralized and where the manufacturing is closer to the consumer, mm-hmm. and then looking at what type of technology can you do, do you need in order to reach that goal. And while I was thinking about these things, I got other jobs, so I was teaching a bit in industrial psychology, and then I worked a couple of years at IBM. Mm-hmm. And then in parallel with this, I did the programming and simulations and figuring out how I can do this, and that's how I ended up with what I'm doing right now. Yeah.
Oh wow! So a big knowledge field, I guess, that sort of came down to this idea of creating a sustainable 3D printing marketplace.
It's a bit of a mishmash.
Yeah, nice. And about kind of this year, I guess, how have you managed with sort of 2020?
Right, 2020. So
an interesting question for all, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's been a quite interesting year, so I don't really know where to start. But it's quite hard when you create your own company because you're quite alone. Mm-hmm. But in 2020, everyone are alone, so it's yes. It's kind of cake on cake, if you know what I mean. But that's also why I contacted Cathy and saw if is there in a potential to be here a little bit, so I have someone to talk to and someone to connect with, because it's still really important to reach out and build some kind of social network. So I think that's been the biggest challenge. So it has been about meeting people when you can, not too often, and especially not during the peaks, but reaching out online through the phone and Skype as much as possible. Yes. Just to keep myself in contact with reality as much as possible.
Yeah, so that it helped both on kind of your personal journey with launching this new business, I guess, a marketplace, but did it also help with getting sort of different networks and networking with people?
Yeah, definitely, because I live a bit outside Stockholm, so when I'm there it's quite hard to, if I want to go out and network with someone in Stockholm. So if I use Social Impact Hub as a base, and it's much easier because it's also central, so it's much easier to just, okay, I found an interesting place in the south, let's take this up there and meet them and talk to them. That's much more, that's possible when I'm here, it's not possible when I'm sitting at home. So having a base, it's really good. So working here during the day, and then if I need to take day trips, I can do that and I can come back.
Yeah.
So it means a lot.
And then, so when did you launch this idea of a climate-friendly 3D printing?
Right. So climate-friendly 3D printing, that's kind of part of the marketplace, because it's about figuring out how can you lower the barrier for manufacturing for people, and what type of technology is necessary for decentralizing production. So 3D 3D printing is quite the obvious thing. It says going through a hype cycle, so people are still figuring out what can you do and what can't you do with 3D printing. But there's other technologies you can combine with 3D printing as well. Something called CNC, laser cutting, and things like that. So in the end, it's important to have like many different technologies, and so you can create more complex, sustainable products. But I'm starting with 3D printing because that's something that people know, people understand it, and plus you can use PLA, which is plant-based plastics, to produce your products. So it's obvious choice for both social and environmental reasons. Actually, I love this PLA plastic. I'm a big nerd of it. It's almost as much as 3D printing. It's so much better than normal plastic in terms of carbon footprint and everything.
And speaking of that, you've brought some samples for us to check out.
Right,
and,
yes.
I want to ask kind of what makes it so sustainable. You're talking about the plastics that kind of is used in this, but so the product itself is not only sustainable, but how is the your company the concept sustainable?
Right. So as a concept, it's to put the production as close to the consumer as possible. So if you use things like 3D printing, then it's enough to produce the item when someone orders it. So you don't need to have a big warehouse with thousands of products. And if no one buys them, you don't need to throw away things you don't need. You can produce it in demand, more or less. Which also gives people the potential to customize the products before they buy it. And another good thing with 3D printing is that it's much cheaper to get started with 3D printing. So if someone, for example, would join my network and say, hey, I also want to produce your items, and it only costs a few thousand to get started, and they could already like start producing these different items. So it lowers the barrier for entrance, which is good for social, and then it's much better for the environment.
That's great. And then, so these are the sort of things which you have produced already for us.
Yes.
Are there any other things that you kind of want to produce with the 3D printing?
Right, so the main goal is actually to have like a marketplace, and what I want is people to come with their ideas or come with their design, and then either get help with modeling it in the computer, or if you already know CAD or if you know 3D modeling, then you model it, and then you come with it to the marketplace and upload it, then other people produce it for you.
Oh, that's great.
So that's the goal, and then the people who produce it, they get the majority of the income, and then the designer gets a sum, and then I take a bit to keep the marketplace running.
That's a really kind of it's a new and innovative way of kind of making new products, I guess, in kind of a more sustainable way, both kind of in the climate, in that you're not outsourcing to other companies to create and ship over products, but creating it more on like a local level.
Yeah, exactly.
And also the fact that you're networking with people within an area that's close to you as well. It's really quite a good one. And on that note, what have you learnt kind of this year, 2020?
What have I learned? Well, I think what I've learned has also been what has been most difficult in 2020, because it's like really market fit, like being as close to the customer as possible, and that is really hard when everyone are locked inside, more or less. But like still trying, and like just try to sell something even if you don't have anything. So this is just like I posted on Facebook, hey, I have this thing, anyone wants to buy it, and apparently people want to buy it, and then I have to like fix the infrastructure so people can actually pay for it. So I think my biggest learning is to plan less and just sell things and then solve the problems after a while.
Yeah, that's great. And so you've bought some great a Christmas gift ideas as well.
Right, yes I did.
Looking really good. Where did you come up with the idea of Fuck 2020? Can we say that on camera?
Right, so yeah, these are Christmas decorations, 2 different themes. It's you can hang them in your Christmas tree, but if you see it, maybe it's too small. It says F COVID, and this one says F 2020. And well, it wasn't my idea. It's or I think I Googled it, and then I found people who have these designs, and I asked if I can sell their design on the webpage, and they were like, yeah, sure. So I paid them a bit, and then I can sell it.
Oh, so they sent you the blueprint for the idea, and then you kind of produced it.
Exactly.
That's amazing. That's such a good idea. And what's the plans going forward then for 2021? A new year, hopefully full of new opportunity.
Right. So the plan is to find as many designers as possible who have products they want to sell, but maybe they want to sell it with plastic, which doesn't screw up the planet.
Yeah.
Or also manufacturers who want to start their own business, maybe they want to produce things. In that case, they don't need to develop their own products. What I would offer them would be a growing library of products that they can sell, and we would take care of marketing and other things like that. So
Yes.
for me, it's really about finding people who are interested in being makers and who are interested in being designers.
Oh, that's so cool. And how big do you think you can go with the 3D printing? Like, is there like a larger design which you could do? What's the largest
All
design
right.
you could?
Well, we have these ones which are a bit bigger, which you can't really do in conventional manufacturing. But with this 3D printer, you can go about 30 times 30 times 30.
Wow, okay.
But you can go really big. The only thing is that the bigger you go, the longer time it takes. Like this one takes 3 days to print.
Okay.
So
Okay.
so it takes much longer time. If you have other machines, and I also actually developed another machine which makes larger, much faster and cheaper, but it still costs much more to get started with it. But in theory, you could print chairs. Some people are printing houses. Depends on how big your budget is.
Yeah,
basically.
that's great. Well, hopefully we won't be making F 2021. Fingers crossed.
Hopefully we won't need it.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
If, like us, you want to give a big FU to 2020 and also decorate your tree at the same time, you can go online at Andreas's Marketplace, which is just on the bottom of the screen now, and order. Next up, we'll be joining Laurie, who will give us some tips on how to shop presents this Christmas for kids with a gender equality perspective.
Thank you so much, Caitlin and Andreas. That was a very interesting conversation that you had, and I mean, we look forward to know more about the outcomes of this new venture that Andreas have. Well, next we have the pleasure to have Laurie Robbins Erickson. She's an advisor, she's a coach, and she's a speaker, and she focuses on leadership and gender and inclusion. Welcome, Laurie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Happy holidays, everyone.
We're very excited to have you here because we believe that this topic that you focus on is very important. Now, well, it has always been important, but nowadays I feel like we have like even more, we're giving more platforms for it to speak and more interest to know more about it. So tell us a little bit, first of all, tell us a little bit about you, who you are. Just give a brief introduction of what your passion is behind this work that you do.
So my name is Laurie Robbins Erickson. I am a speaker and I work in leadership, emotional intelligence, and what I call a gender intelligence. And the reason I'm passionate about this work is that I was in the Peace Corps in West Africa many years ago, and I've always advocated for women. But it wasn't until I really kind of moved to a low-income country and saw how, like African women, for example, just they run the country, they run the continent. That I felt like we really have to do something to help the lives of women, and it includes two things. One is helping women, supporting women, and the other one is developing men and males. So briefly, that's why I do this work.
Yes, and your work has to do both, to give both these tools and knowledge behind for them to be able to put it, let's say, to put it in practical terms whenever they're in their work, in the work field, in their families, relationships.
Yes. So it's less about policy and more about culture. Because I think while policy is important and needed, and we can see in Sweden what policy has done, unless we also focus on culture, and culture is, who am I in the system and who are you in the system and how do we operate in the system, that's where really transformation occurs.
Yes. And going to that, on that note, when it's that you highlight that this is something cultural. So it's something that it's ingrained in us, that we learned from our surroundings, from where we live, how we grew up. And so why don't we start with talking about now your expertise and how we can reflect back on this culture, on our everyday lives, but now towards the holiday season. So one big question behind this is, when does this start? Like, when does we start building this sensitivity about gender norms and gender culture?
So it's a great question. So children begin identifying or understanding gender at about 10 months old. And then a lot of things happen in the brain between 0 and 5. So there's a number of bullet points I could go through there, but it's research. People can find this. But I will that what happens at around age 5 is that children, both boys and girls, they begin to perceive that boys are smarter. And then girls begin opt out of activities that are deemed to require intelligence or brilliance. So this was published in Science magazine, and while it was a U.S. study, it was replicated in many other parts of the world. So we do believe that that children learn gender learn a gender and what they believe about gender at this age. So, when we're thinking about gifts for children or what we do, if you knew, this is a bit of drastic, but let's say it's 2020, so we can think drastically this year. If we just thought, whatever I expose my child to by age 6, that about gender, that's what they're going to believe. What would you choose, right? So there's other research that shows that children who grow up in very gender rigid households, like this is what it means to be male, this is what it means to be female, they tend to have higher rates of mental illness and depression, for example. So there's a lot that happens before the age of 6.
So it's in a way like this internal stress that, for example, going back to this strict households that you're talking about, it creates an extra stress on the child to try to fit on these boxes or these norms that they're demanded from them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And for some children it'll be I think for some children it's more stressful than others. I mean, the old saying that, boys aren't allowed to cry, right? I mean, that can put a lot of stress, and does put a lot of stress on males, and globally we know that men around the world, including Sweden, no offense to Sweden, right? We're all learning and evolving with this, right? Is that we've learned to suppress, emotions. And from a female perspective, be pretty, don't say much,
be perfect, be perfect. We're demanded to be perfect.
Be perfect.
Yes.
Right. I remember the first time I was giving a talk in this front of this audience, and I was wearing white pants, and I had a stain. I had dropped coffee on my, and I was and when I was younger, I would have been like, oh my God, it's not perfect. And I stood in front of this group and I said, I just have to tell you, I have a stain on my pants. Stare at it. And now we can move on.
Process it.
It was just I had let's just all agree that I'm so not perfect.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, it's part of the experience of being human.
Right.
Yes, right. But, okay, so let's address the situation in the table.
Right.
So talking about this in ways of being perfect and how we learned since very early age how a person is supposed to be, a woman is supposed to look, how a man is supposed to look, and we want to know how we can bridge this to get over this defined perception that we have about gender roles. How can we teach them since early age for our kids?
So there's a lot of focus on females at this point, which is wonderful in a sense. In the sense of empowering, empowering girls. You can step out of your comfort zone, be courageous. So there's a book called Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls, which was published a number of years ago. I'd highly recommend. It's a one single pages, of some strong female around the world. It's global in nature, multicultural.
Yeah.
It's a great book. They've actually come out with chapter books. So this is about a really cool Japanese mountain climber. Then you have, Avengers. So the general idea is, and I could go on and on about books. The general idea is, when you look at a book or you're reading a book to your child, are you saying he or him more than her? So look at the protagonist, right? Is there a female protagonist who is strong, right? Is there a female protagonist who is strong? So these are more, younger books. This is more kind of elementary school. You have Little House on the Prairie. So again, just notice.
Yes, as a parent.
As a parent. And I've talked to, when my daughter was younger, and I talked to other moms, new moms, and they said, I keep changing the gender when I'm reading books. Because even, when your kids are 1 or 2, you have it's not people, you have elephants and lambs and sheep and they tend to be gendered in some way. So just notice, are you saying he, him a lot? And then,
That's true, and because they would identify, how you say, or the hero or the protagonist or the one that saves at the end of the day.
Who's the problem solver?
Yes.
And a little fun fact. So before 2000, 98. A lot.
Yes.
Of
some decades ago.
So before 2000, over 90% of children's books written had male protagonists. So, and if females were there, they were supportive, they were nurturing, which is all fine.
Yes.
But females can be more than that.
Yes.
So although it's like, oh, but Laura, that was 20 years ago, if you're over the age of 20, you were probably exposed to a number of books that had male
male
protagonists.
Yes.
It's changing. The world's changing quickly, which is great since we have this, since we have some research, which is really exciting, right? But we're talking about Christmas, we're talking about holidays, so just parents be mindful of what you expose your child to. Can I talk about Barbie?
Yes,
Go.
and before
Go.
that, when you mentioned of so this was some decades ago. So now when we're talking about the parents, the actual parents of current times, so they still were living when there were all these male protagonists, only high rates of male protagonists. There wasn't that many women representation as the protagonists on books and films, on other more diverse backgrounds, and in entertainment and in roles of leadership.
Right.
That's another topic.
Right.
But yes, so going to your point, now that we are this generation of 20 years ago that are becoming parents, how can we start with it? So yes, let's continue with these representations that we have for toys.
So if you're thinking about toys for your children, just think about, is this toy, is it considered female, or is it considered male, right? So, for example, Barbie was a favorite. This is a traditional Barbie. Somebody gave it to my daughter, even though they knew who I am. Listen, it's okay to be, it's totally okay to be dressed like this. It's fine to love heels and all of this, right? It's great. But if this is the only thing you're exposing your daughter to, just know that she's soaking this up, right? And most fathers that I know or that I meet, they want their daughters to be strong and kind of powerful, right? So here's one option. So this is like traditional Barbie. And stiletto heels and she moves in like 2 directions. Like that's kind of absurd. Sorry. I hope no one from Mattel is watching. But and this is considered more of like a gender neutral option, right? It's another type of Barbie. You'll notice that like the knees move, anatomically it just makes more sense as a human being. And plus it can be more like gender neutral, right? Like sure, there are girls with
short hair, long
or
hair,
this could be a boy, right? So
boys with long hair,
right? So the good thing is we have many more options now. So you as a parent just like take a step back and be like, if I'm giving my child this, which is okay, how can I balance it out with something, right? Can I balance it out with something that's traditionally male, right? Yes. So you're just exposing your child to a kind of a broader range of what it means to be in the world, right? Whether you're male or female.
Yes. And one interesting thing that I see more often here, I'm thinking of my on the side of Stefan, my husband's family. They have little kids like his sister, and they go to for skola, like they go to kindergarten and everything. And the boy, he has his nails painted sometimes, and it's completely normal. And then now we can say that it's completely normal, but there's some places that don't, that we're still doing headlines around it in like a newspapers, on the media, or suspensions at school because they want to wear nail polish.
Right.
Yes.
So imagine what this does to a kid, right? They're just trying to express themselves.
Yes.
It doesn't really mean that much to them, right? But when an adult then says, "Oh, you shouldn't wear that. That's what girls do, or that's what boys do," right? Like those those phrases should just be, there should be a lightning bolt that comes down. Well, that's a bit extreme.
Yes.
But and even think. Sorry, I could talk a lot.
Oh
about
no!
this.
Yes, go ahead. Yes,
even thinking about Christmas, the holiday itself, right? I was raised Christian. Regardless of your beliefs, where you're still praising Santa Claus, who's like an old man with a white beard, right? Mrs. Claus gets no praise. So make a note of that. Just make a note of it, right?
Yes.
It sounds like these small things, but I think that the more that we kind of reinforce, whether it's through toys, whether it's through these cultural traditions that we have, religion, that we reinforce, regardless of your beliefs. I'm not, take the religion out of it, but just look at the role model and the influence, knowing the influence that has on young children.
And for example, when you mentioned of Mrs. Claus, like that small thing, like it's not that how you say it's wrong or anything, but you just don't,
we never even heard of her.
Or like, oh yes. I would never have thought that, of course, we can also have Miss Claus showing up in the chimney. Why not?
Right. And she doesn't have to be wearing like a short and skimpy gown either.
No.
Like something you see if you serve like Mrs. Claus's costumes on.
Oh, I
Don't
know.
look
yes.
that up. Anyway.
But okay, so this is gonna get a little bit personal for me because I am pregnant. I'm expecting a child, and I think more about like the topic of, and now that my God, like part of the first questions that we ask is like, is it a boy? Is it a girl? Is it what is it? And at this point, I just want the kid to go out and healthy and be good, and that's my bottom interest, and main interest. But the more I think about it, and I get the question and everything, and I try to find the meaning behind it of like, is it more meaningful if it's a girl? If it's more meaningful if it's a boy? Like how can we, now that for those that are going to be newly parents, or they just are beginning their journey as a parent, how can we start exploring, like think more about it in a more meaningful way? And when we raise our kids, we apply it naturally. gifts?
I think it's a great question because, you know, from an American perspective, I mean, I got loads of gifts growing up, right? And so Christmas is associated with gifts, right? And so the idea is that, you know, how else can we be building tradition with our kids? And especially, to be honest, like this has been a rough year, right? I mean, this is like history book, 1940, you know, 1940 to World War II, and oh yes, 2020, you know? So, you know, and just to acknowledge that, you know, that what kids really need right now is connection. I mean, we all need this right now. This has been the one thing. I mean, people are not going back and visiting their families, whether it's in Sweden or outside of Sweden. So there is, you know, there, on one hand, there's this sense of loss, right? These traditions that we had. Okay, what can we do now with our children? We can, you know, what new traditions can we build?
Yes.
So, you know, so for example, you know, and this is moving more kind of away from the gender intelligence and into more of like an emotional intelligence. Right?
Yes.
It's like, can we name that this year has been tough? And can we name, you know, can parents as parents, can we name an emotion that we might feel around not being able to go see family, for example?
Yes.
Right?
And just a parenthesis in between that, we have to realize that we are not thriving during the pandemic. Like, we're trying to survive and to realize day by day what exactly it means and how we cope. And imagine a kid multiplies the feelings behind it, because the way of processing or trying to rationalize behind things is not the same. It's more what's the word, like more rough or more
they don't have a prefrontal cortex yet, right? And they're observing us,
how we react,
right? And how we're acting through this. So you know, so around Christmas, you know, or around the holidays, just create fun sort of new traditions. You know, Hanukkah is coming up. Can you talk about Hanukkah? Celebrate Hanukkah. Make a latke. You know, why not? Expose your kids to different traditions. You know, if you have a Christmas tree, you know, have your child sleep in a sleeping bag in front of the Christmas tree, right? It's cozy, it's nurturing. You know, just think like out of the box, what else can we do together so that this is really meaningful?
Yes.
Right, for my child. You know, I talk about emotional intelligence, and it's, you know, teaching our kids about emotional intelligence. So, you know, you can make a simple poster, an emotional intelligence poster. You know, kids by the age of 5 generally know happy, sad, angry, and maybe surprised, right? You know, make a poster with 4 squares. Have your kid draw the face of what they think those emotions look like, and then when you're feeling those emotions, just go point to them as a family, right? Normalize it.
Yes.
Normalize that it's okay to experience a range of emotions. And now I think just during this year is a really important time to both name them and then support each other in what can we do now? You know, what can we do now to make this
and it can be
special.
And it could be this perfect opportunity of, because usually we use the holiday season, end of the year, to try to reflect on what we've done, what do you look forward to, and everything. So it can be a starting point.
It can be a starting point.
To change this, how do you say, to change this maybe habits or kind of like interaction that you have with each other, and to improve that for the better.
Right. There's another practice. It comes from something called the 5-minute journal, but you can do this with your kids as well. So in the morning, you can ask your child, you know, what's one thing you're grateful for today? And at the end of the day, when you're putting them to sleep, you know, what's one thing that you liked about today? I try to do this with my 7-year-old. I fail frequently, or at least she doesn't respond to it. But people have said, and psychologists say, the more that you practice this, actually when they get older, you know, it's helpful. Even if at age 7, there isn't much of a response.
Oh yes, more of a personal question. What is it that you've seen in your 7-year-old, 6-year-old?
7.
7. Big already. That's you think that's like top 3 advices that you've done that have been, I won't say easy, but maybe like, it's worth that I pushed on this. I'm proud of doing.
Somebody else asked me that, and I said, "Can you come back to me when she's 20?"
Still in process. It goes back.
I'm just not sure whether it's gonna it's an experiment.
It's still an experiment.
I'm doing my best. I think so. One is I think one is exposing. I feel like I have to knock on wood. Like I'm going to curse myself by saying this. Sorry. It's anyway. I think
you want to mention it.
No. One thing. I think one thing is exposing her to different cultures. So when I traveled more for work to Africa, and she came with me. So just exposing her to different cultures and that everybody matters. That's one thing. I think exposing her to that I work a lot with women and women around the world. So whether it's in corporations or whether I was in India 2 years ago, and we FaceTimed. So I was introducing these Indian women I was working with. So she can still name, she still has named them, and she has this. Although she missed me, she had this positive experience. So just exposing her to different cultures, exposing her to work that I feel matters, kind of purpose-driven work.
Yes.
And that a mom who cares about, I care about my work. I think that also matters. And also, I don't know if this is going to come back to haunt me, but just exposing her to, I did a TEDx talk on this a number of years ago, and she was in the audience. So she heard me practice this so many times, right? And she was in the audience, and she's like waving to me as I'm like trying to focus. But she's been exposed to this, so I'm going to answer this in a short story.
Yeah.
We had a male friend over at the house, and he said to my husband, "I'm not sure what's worse. What is worse? Having 4 sons. He has 4 sons. So having 4 sons, or having Laurie and Mika." And my daughter, when she I said nothing. My daughter turned and looked at him and said, "I'm not laughing."
Oh.
And I was like, yes, yes, something's happening right
It's working here.
So it's working. So I think it's important for females to to speak up, stand up, and rise up.
And
it's time. It's time. And it's also time for men. It's also time for males to also evolve from an emotional perspective. That it's okay to have emotions. But there's still so much work. The pandemic has not helped from a gender equality perspective.
No, it hasn't.
Around the world.
A lot of work is, besides women being on the work field full time, when they come home, it's another full time as well. Or not even come home. They're juggling at home.
And then it all just coming from, we've been in Sweden, but my daughter has been home for a number of weeks. It all just kind of blurs and blends together. So, it's... And we're in Sweden.
Tough. And we're in Sweden compared to other places that it's even more that it's not as flexible, that companies or employers they're not expected to have that much flexibility or consideration if you're parents.
Right. So even I would say even in Sweden, globally we have a challenge now with gender equality. Right. So we have the pandemic, but before the pandemic. Here's an example. My daughter, you can imagine me as a mom. I try not to be overly controlling. Sorry. Oh.
Yes, we were talking on how so far the pandemic has the workload of women.
Right. It's changed women and girls around the world. Right. Girls are not going to school like they were in certain parts of the world. Right. So. Women in the corporate world, so all of this, right? It's messy. Okay. It's been a mess. But I will say, even before this happened, so we have a couple of challenges right now to gender equality before the pandemic. So I'll give you another example. So my daughter, I'm her mom. I try not to be too controlling, But we monitor what she watches, right? She'll watch YouTube. She's allowed to watch certain things on YouTube, but we don't see always the commercials that she watches. So, so for Christmas a couple weeks ago, we said, we're asking her what does she want, and writing a note to Santa, and she's like, I like mascara. Like, how do you even know mascara exists? Like, and again, there's nothing wrong with wearing makeup.
But it was odd.
But it was
where did
of all the things in the world, right? You could have ice skates or skis or, taking a rock climbing, and she's like, I like mascara. I'm just like, great. So I'm not giving her mascara. She's 7, right? And at this point, I can kind of redirect into what other gifts would you like? And we will focus on these other gifts, and I will do my best to make her holiday connecting, right? That she feels connected. I would just rather my daughter and our girls grow up knowing that it's not, what's more important, it's not the length of my nails, but the creativity that I can, who I can be in the world, right?
And how you, to your point of saying that it's okay to choose to, want to have nice nails or either the clothes or painting and everything.
I love a great dress.
As long as it doesn't, if it's, how do you say, it's nice to...
It's great to dress up and feel pretty and beautiful.
Why not?
Why not, right? But if that's...
As long as it doesn't, intervene or that it limits you to do other things that you are also, want to do for yourself as well.
So from a public speaking perspective, right? There's some women that feel very uncomfortable if they are not wearing high heels when they're public speaking. That's something to work on.
Yeah.
Right. So the idea is, what I say to my daughter is whether she's wearing tights and a dress or whether she's wearing jeans or whatever she's wearing is do you feel confident? And as long as you feel confident in what you're wearing, and you can go climb if you feel like climbing, doesn't matter what you wear, right? Go make something in the world.
The bottom line is whatever makes you feel confident, because that's the way that you are going to either dare to do more things or just to go in the world out there with what you want others to perceive from you, right? And that can go for any person, any kid. It doesn't need to be a girl or a boy or...
It's universal.
Yes.
It's human.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Lori.
This
was very, very insightful and inspiring in terms of moving forward with not only now in the holidays, but next year, hopefully it's going to be better. But thanks again for being here with us.
Thanks for inviting me here.
Yes. And if people want to get to know more about you, your work, how can they reach out to you?
You can find me at laurie.co. So that's laurie.co. And you'll find there's work on gender intelligence and this thing about emotional intelligence and leadership. I've also done, I also did a TEDx a number of years ago, which is on TED.com. So you can go to TED and search in Laurie Robbins Erickson, where you'll actually be able to hear more of those bullets I mentioned in the beginning about early childhood development, when gender is formed, and also moving into kind of the leadership part, which I think is so fundamental as well. Thank you, Impact Hub, for having me here.
Thank you for being here with us. So stay tuned. Coming up is Pierre, who's going to teach us how to do some Christmas bonding online. More fun.
I thought Cathy was going to sing.
Oh, yes. So before we go to Pierre, Cathy is going to be joining us with her amazing vocal cords. So keep watching.
It's beginning to smell a lot like Christmas. Saffron buns galore. If you like our cozy look, then you know just where to book your day pass, meeting rooms, and more. It's beginning to feel a lot like Christmas. everywhere you go. Especially at Impact Hub, where you'll find our friendly mob to welcome all of you home. I don't know, was that...
Very good. Very good. Interesting.
Wonderful. Thank you, Cathy. Good job. Coming up, we have Pierre Kili. He's a social entrepreneur. He's an engineer manager for cruise automation in San Francisco, but he's here. He works remotely. Welcome, Pierre.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here with us today. A little bit about Pierre's background. He has been a freelance for the past 4-6 years, but he started his entrepreneurial career by building up a startup back in Paris, where you're from France. And it was in the food tech industry, and the company was called Qualito.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. So Qualito was a mobile app to help people eat exactly the product that they wanted. I started the company 7 years ago because it was coming from a very personal need. I was taking care of the food that I was eating, and I was very cautious about the ingredients and additives that you can find in them. And I wanted to eat good quality food, basically. And we had a lot of scandals in France at the time.
Scandals? What
Yes.
kind of scandals in the food industry?
Issues with chemicals and pesticides, and there has been a very there was that issue where there was horse meat in some lasagna a few years ago. So these kind of things made it made a lot of noise in France. Yes, and there has been a very big boom of local shops and organic shops, a lot as well.
Okay. And was that kind of controversy or like this satisfaction in you in the food system that brought you here to Sweden, or how was your journey here?
Oh, my journey was, so I'm working remotely as a freelance, as you said, and I have the opportunity to work from anywhere. I was not very happy with living in Paris. Paris is fantastic, but it's not very handy with kids. I have 2 children, 9 and 11, and it's not a very kid-friendly city. And I was not very happy with the school system in France, and I was not very happy with different things. And I have this opportunity, since I work remotely and I'm very used to it, to work from anywhere. So that's how we decided to come to Sweden, because Sweden is beautiful and more respectful of people and have a very good school system.
And food-wise? Now talking about food?
Food-wise, so food is interesting. It was a little bit complicated for us coming from France, because we had access to a lot of fresh local food, which we have not managed to find really yet in Sweden as much. So it's a little bit of a challenge still, and it's a very interesting challenge, I would say.
Yes. But I've heard, from what you have shared with us previously, that it has made you a little bit more creative also as well in trying to figure out, because you're also passionate about promoting veganism and like different, more sustainable lifestyles of food consumption, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. But okay, do you have?
Yes, absolutely. I'm so intrigued, because I think this year a lot of work teams have been experiencing COVID, obviously, and as a result I've had to work from home, virtual meetings, working remotely as such. But you've obviously been experienced with that for quite a while already.
Yes.
And I'm wondering how has that sort of affected your relationship building within the team? Do you have any sort of insights?
Yeah, it was very interesting because so I've been working remotely for 4 or 5 years now, and for the past year I've been working as a manager. So my role is to build a team spirit within people who are not working together physically. They are quite spread in the world, and so I've been trying to reproduce and adapt some things coming from the regular employee and company world into remote working, like having a coffee machine meeting that is totally optional for everyone, and so who wants just joins, and we're talking about whatever comes, exactly like as you would at the coffee machine in the morning when you arrive. The difference is that, well, for some people it's going to be the beginning of their day, but for others it's going to be the end of theirs because they're not in the same time zone. So that's very interesting, and it changes a little bit the discussions that we have, because the people who have been working all day, they are still sometimes, they have their mind into the work still, so they're thinking about what they've been doing and what they just stopped in order to join this coffee machine meeting, where others who are a little bit more fresh, they come thinking about the holidays or what, or whatnot, or how they will organize Christmas and what they are going to do. So it makes a mix of discussion that is very interesting, and it enables a good transition for both of them, because then the ones who stop working, they transition to something else more easily because they just had a different discussion, and the ones who starts working, they get to the work because they get that discussion as well.
Yes, I think that you mentioned that aspect of team spirit, and that's been really, really important, I think, for many companies over the world. And it's nice that through sort of those small ideas, which aren't actually small, actually make quite a big impact, but kind of having those the coffee machine time in the mornings is quite good to build a sense of routine within the team, and definitely bringing them together, which I think is so important. And that must have really helped this with this year, even though you've kind of been working remotely for quite some time. I think lots of companies over the world have struggled with that in some ways, especially with the different time zones. So
and that's a really good point about doing these simultaneous things together, or trying to bridge these online gatherings and just feel a little bit more connected by tasting the same things, or having like the same experience.
Yes, it's important to have something that people can share, because then they feel more as a group. When you're around the same table and eating in the same with the same dishes and eating the same food, you are sharing not only the time but the experience. So it's important to try to reproduce that with remote people, and with it within work or personal life. So I'm now living a little bit far away from the rest of my family, my brothers, my parents, and many of my friends. And this is a way that we've been working. So I live in Sweden now for almost 3 years, and that's the way that we've been using to stay connected.
And okay, for a lot of us, it's remote working is new. Not all of us have experience on it, and we're still trying to figure out how to keep this connection. And some of us, for the holidays, for Christmas, we're not going to be able to travel. So do you have, with your vast experience on this, do you have any examples of how people that are trying to keep that connection with their family, even though they're abroad in other countries, how would you, from work, how would you apply it, from what has worked in your job, how would you apply it with family relations?
So the idea is to do the same thing together. So it goes from, cooking together, sending to everyone the recipe up front, the list of ingredients that they need to buy, making sure upfront that everyone has everything, so it starts the conversation already. So that's something that you can start like a week before, and then cook together, which is gonna be like take maybe 2 or 3 hours, because you're gonna cook for Christmas, so you probably want to do something a little bit more delicate and sophisticated. And well, actually having one person who is gonna maybe lead the cooking and then the others to follow, more or less how they can. That's really interesting, and it's a lot of fun, actually. And so you're sharing the same activity, and then you get to eat your own food, which is an experience by itself as well. And it happens that it's the same food as they are all eating. So you're sharing the same food, but while still eating your own. So it can be a lot of fun, and it creates a real bond between people. So that's something that can apply for Christmas, but you can, I mean, people do it.
In any gathering.
In any gathering, yes, absolutely.
That's true.
Some people, it can be a little bit challenging to cook together.
Are you a good cook?
No.
So you're not going to be leading the...
Oh, no, definitely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not, but I try to follow. One other solution is to have some products, like I have a friend, it's not for Christmas, but he's getting married next week. And of course, it's complicated for them to have a lot of people at the same place. So most of the people will be on Skype and or Zoom or whatever. And they have a box with a small bottle of champagne, with a champagne glass, and some kind of a small cake that reproduces the wedding cake, which is going to be delivered to everyone. So they will all have the same glasses, the same champagne, the same cake, and they will be at the same time all together celebrating. I'm not saying it's going to be the same, but it's a good way to keep the bond.
Yes, to still feel that you are doing, that you are there together, let's say, but by sharing the same experiences, sharing the same food, products, or drinks.
Yes.
Getting tipsy together, why not?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Yes, well, that's so fun. What other examples do you have?
Well, you can try to make it more playful as well. You have several options for that. Something that I tried and that worked pretty well was, for example, to share photos. We did that twice. We had 2 different themes. The first one was sharing a photo of your childhood, where you appear on the photo. So the idea was, well, for my group of engineers, the idea was to try to guess who it was. But you can try to guess who it was, when it was, where it was, and what was happening. Maybe there was something special happening there. So that was very interesting. We had also one about sharing photos of your last trip. We cannot travel now, but it doesn't mean that we cannot enjoy some of the traveling side effects. Yes, and so it was very interesting. People were very happy to talk about their traveling. And so we've been doing these with photos, and then we've been also like playing together to online games, which are what works the best is board games that have been adapted online, like Scribble is one of them, like draw and guess, basically. There is another board game called Code Names, where there are 2 teams working. Yeah. It works really well.
It gets intense.
Yes, and it looks like quite serious, but people have a lot of fun, and they are really sharing the moment.
They get intense in the moment, competitive.
But everyone's smiling at the end.
Yes.
It's all good. It's all good. And then, so moving into the new year now, I wondered whether you had any kind of recommendations for companies who, over the last sort of year or so, have adapted to this new way of working, and perhaps for one reason or another have been struggling now with kind of that whole team morale and keeping up the team spirit. The new year might mean different opportunities for lots of people, and I wonder whether you had any recommendations as someone who's experienced working remotely and centres that idea of team spirit. Are there any sort of one or two tips which you can offer to those companies?
I think something that is really important is trust.
Yeah.
You have to trust the people you work with. If you don't trust them, you just shouldn't hire them at all, like be it in the office or not, because you can go to the office and not work for the whole day and just pretend. So it's actually the same with remote work, just made more easy.
Mm-hmm.
So you should work with people expecting them to deliver what they should deliver and not work 8 hours or whatever hours you are expecting them. Because having, so working remotely has, it's not always easy. It has drawbacks. And if you cannot take advantage of the good sides of it, then you're just losing the opportunity. So working remotely means you can have like a hole in the middle of your day to do something else, to go running, to maybe to go have a haircut or take the car to the garage, and it takes 3 hours, and that's fine because you started at some point and you've been working, and then you take your car there, and then you're working a little bit more during the night or maybe the next day, or you need to be more flexible and have people working with goals rather than have people working a certain amount of time. That's something that is very important.
That's a great
Good tips.
Yes.
Good tips to take into
especially and how that sets our communication of like, okay, not about the time spent, but okay, deliverables, or like when like to have clear expectations of when to have those goals or those deadlines set.
Yes. And one other thing that I can think of is that since people are not in the office, they don't have much contact. So it's important to not enforce them, but you have to make them a little bit more obvious, the points of contact. To have one-to-one meetings with people, have coffee machine with people that are a little bit. Those are the things that are quite natural when you're working in the office, but you have to make them a little bit more formally because otherwise they will be forgotten.
Yes.
And that helps a lot also to keep the team spirit and people working together, to keep them motivated, and also for you as a manager or as a company to see if people are doing well, basically.
Yes.
Because maybe they are struggling with their personal life, and then in the office you can see it maybe, but you have to be able to still see it from when they are remote.
So true. Lastly, what do you look forward to 2021?
I'd like very much to be able to travel again, but that's not something very specific to me. Well, maybe new challenges. I think it's going to be a lot of new challenges. My teams are supposed to grow quite a bit, so I think it's going to be very interesting. But that's for myself.
Yes. It's your interview. We want to know for you, Pierre. Thank you so much
for
being with us.
But before you go, Pierre, I've got to give you a Christmas present.
Oh.
Something to add to your tree. A saffron bulle.
Oh, thank you so much.
To decorate.
Do I get anything?
Oh, now you
myself?
mention it. I do have something for you because I thought of you specifically. Gabby got her bike stolen a while ago, and ever since then she hasn't been the same, have you?
It hasn't been the same at all. No.
So as a gift, I bought you a new lock.
Yes.
This is from one of our members, Junaid Jusani. He has a founder of a company called Frekis, and it's a smart lock. And would you believe it? It hasn't got any keys, no physical keys. It's all controlled through an app via your phone. Much easier, and you can also share it with your partner as well at home.
I might not share it.
Just keep it to yourself.
I'll keep it to myself.
Well, it's a shareable lock. So
okay. This is
Something for you
amazing.
to do.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. And
Very welcome.
And what's and what happens if people try to get my bike or move my bike?
Well, it will make a really, really loud noise, so I don't think anyone will be coming near it. About 100 a decibel. So no one's going to be going anywhere near that.
Okay. All right. I'll keep it safe then. I might share
Safe and
it.
secure.
I might not. But yes. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone who tuned in. And we, the whole Impact Hub team, wish you a very, very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and all the best for this upcoming year. Lots of love, peace, health.
And we look forward to seeing you in the new year. Merry Christmas from all of us. Take care.
More singing.
Merry Christmas.
And this year, live streaming is brought to you by our partner, Planet Media.
Oh God, thank God for that.
God, it's over. Kind of sweaty.
What a year. I'm sorry.
I know.
Shittest year.
What are we celebrating? What's next? 2021? Looking forward?
Zombies, the apocalypse.
I mean, come at me. I think that we're prepared.
What's next?
We've already had murder hornets.
Murder hornets.
Murder hornets.
What the hell is that? What's a murder hornet?
I don't know, man.
Oh shit, we're still live.
Oh,
Cathy?
hi.
Cathy, are we live? Oh. Happy holidays, everyone.
We should have had 2020 vision for that, shouldn't we? Really?
Bye.
Bye.